Hello friends, SentinalhMC here, and welcome back to our Immersive Engineering tutorial series. Now you may have noticed there aren't any crafting benches in front of me, because today we're talking about the Crusher, which is a multi-block, and we've already gone through all the blocks that you need to build it. So there's no new crafting today, just building. Now the Crusher is a bit more complicated of a multi-block than the other ones that we've been working with. Not too bad though. There's 3 layers, and in order to build the Crusher, you're going to need, 10 steel scaffolding, 11 light engineering blocks, 8 steel fences, and 9 hoppers. Just vanilla hoppers. Now, the Crusher is used to crush ores, obviously. You're going to need like silk touch your ores, bring them to the Crusher, chuck them in. The Crusher will double the ores. And it does so really quickly. It uses 120 RF per tick at maximum speed. It takes like 2 seconds to process at that power supply. But it will scale down its power usage if you aren't supplying it that much, and that will increase its processing time. It'll run slower. However, unlike other ore processing machines, it can also take mobs. So if you throw a mob or anything living falls into the Crusher, it will kill it and output its drops. So you can use it to slaughter cows, sheep. You can use it as a mob grinder. You can do a lot with this thing. Don't fall into it yourself as well. That's really bad. You can also turn it off with a redstone signal, and it will output from one side. So let's take a look at how to build it. I've laid it out here in its 3 levels. The first layer is 3 light engineering blocks. This thing is 3 blocks wide and 5 blocks long. So the first layer is just 3 light engineering blocks, and then 3 steel scaffolding. Then you're going to place 1 steel scaffolding at the back, and then 2 light engineering blocks. And then the last 2 rows, or these are columns actually, I think, is each 3 steel scaffoldings. Okay? On the second level, you're going to add 3 steel scaffolding on the far left. You're going to then add a row of steel fences. The next column, you're going to place 1 steel fence, 1 light engineering block, and 1 more steel fence. And on the right, the next layer, the next column, you're going to place 3 steel fences again. And then in the last layer, you're going to leave an empty block and then place 2 light engineering blocks, like this. And don't forget that you can see how to build it, the diagram, in the manual, the engineering book. And for the third layer, all you're doing is placing the 9 hoppers right in the center of the machine. Okay, so right on top of the fences and in the center. Now to make this into the final machine, you need to go to the side that has a light engineering block in the middle. This is the front of the machine. And then you're going to take and whack the steel fence above it with the engineer's hammer. Look at that on my hand. And there is the Crusher. It looks really cool. I like the look of it. It's neat. It's got some cool features. It looks neat. I like that it's got the wood texture at the bottom. That's cool. And you can see the jaws up here. Now this thing doesn't have any power right now, so I could touch it without dying, but you definitely do not want to fall in there while it's running. Okay? Now in order to power this, we come over to the left side where these like little lights, decorative lights, and some gauges are, and you'll see the telltale sign that this mod uses to denote where the power goes, the little copper dot surrounded by a little square. So that's where you're going to place your wire connector, and then we're going to hook it up to our power grid. Now, it's important to note that this particular power grid is running off of a single water wheel, which really is not going to be enough to run the Crusher. The Crusher holds 32,000 RF, and it can drain it very quickly. And you can see that this is refilling at a pretty decent rate, but it's not refilling at 120 RF per tick. So once we start running this, you'll notice this will probably start draining. And then it's going to slow itself down. Now, this little red dot over here, this is where you'll place a lever or some other redstone connection. Doesn't have to be a lever, but that's where you place the redstone signal. That's where the redstone signal goes to turn this off. I'm just going to stick a lever on it. I think it's kind of neat. So if it's running and you pull this lever, it'll turn to the on state. It'll turn the machine off. This side's kind of neat. I don't really know what this is supposed to be here. I think it might just be decorative. And then this little square here is where items come out of. So this is where you would put whatever you want to receive the items. Whether you're going to place a pipe here from another mod, or whether you're going to run conveyor belts. Oh, come on. From Immersive Engineering, which is what we're going to do. We're just going to place down some conveyor belts right there. And that will take the items out. Once the items are spit out, the items are automatically spit out of the crusher. Some machines don't auto-eject, but the crusher does. It auto-ejects. So some mods work better with auto-ejecting machines than others. This thing will auto-eject the items out. So just to demonstrate, we're going to toss in some iron ore. You can see it doesn't take long at all for it to output 2 pieces of iron grit. Now, I will be the first to say the crusher is not as efficient on ores as other mods. It isn't. There are other mods that can give you far more ore for the far more dust for the ore. Rotary craft, for example, will give you an average of 7 or something like that. Maximum of like 8. And mechanism, of course, gives you 5 times if you get it set up enough. However, this is much easier to set up. It's much cheaper and easier to build. So you might want to go for it. It just depends on what you want to do. Because remember, you can also use this as a slaughterhouse. So let's go ahead and just chuck this entire stack in. And we're going to go look at this capacitor. The crusher is kind of loud. As you can see, the capacitor is draining. This thing is draining far more power than one water wheel can produce. If we pull that lever, it instantly turns itself off. Okay, and then if we turn it back on, it'll continue processing the items we threw in. So it's kind of loud. It does have an internal buffer. Okay, the power is running out. It does have an internal storage buffer, and you can get alternate products. So we've been getting iron grit, but now we've got a couple bits of nickel grit. So the crusher does output bonus materials at a lesser rate. Now let's see what we can do as far as processing mobs goes. So let's go to miscellaneous, grab ourselves a cow spawner. And we need a way to put the cows in the machine. So I'm pretty sure the easiest way for me to do that. Well, I can probably I don't know if I can spawn the cow directly on top of the crusher. That didn't work. What was I doing there? That's not how you do it. We can't do that, I don't think. Yes, we can. We can spawn the cow in the crusher. Another way you could do this is you could use the inclined a ramp of inclined conveyor belts to get it up there if you build it properly. But basically, get the cows or other mobs into the crusher, and then it slaughters them instantly. It kills the cow immediately. It gives us our outputs, and it doesn't matter what mob you put in there; it will die instantaneously and give us some kind of an output. And we have run out of power. However, notice that the crusher is still running. As I said, the crusher will scale down its production speed in order to continue running. It is running slower. Now it has officially started running very slowly. Dang, that's taking a very long... Unless it's done. Nope, there it goes. See? That took a very long time to process. And the reason it took that long to process is because we weren't supplying it with enough power. So it will still run at any power level, as long as it has some amount of power. But it will run very, very slowly if you're not providing it enough power. Now we can go ahead and provide enough power. If we come to our water wheel, if we were to expand it to the 3-wide water wheel, we could get ourselves some more power. And I've been told that if I add another block here, I can actually get more power out of this thing. So let's go ahead and just give ourselves a bit more power output. There we go. To run this. It's still, of course, not enough, but the number's gone up to 41. That means that we're producing 3 times the power, and it's able to run faster than it was before. So if your crusher is running really slow, you need to check the power. Even at this speed, with the 3 water wheels, it's still running, you know, at a pretty decent speed. So that's pretty cool. Now another thing about the crusher is, if the crusher can't process something into something else, it will just be destroyed. So let's try chucking some stone in here and see what happens. Nothing. Nothing happens because there is no output for stone. So you can also use it as basically a trash. So be careful what goes in here, because if the crusher can't process it, then it will be destroyed. So there you go. That's the crusher. So you can chuck your ores in there and you can get dust, and you can also get extra outputs like the ore. The iron ore is giving me nickel. And we could go ahead and throw some gold in there. It's probably not going to come out anytime soon because it's got a lot of iron to run through. So you can chuck a whole bunch of stuff in the crusher and just let it go. It's got enough internal buffer storage. So that's it. That's the crusher. So we're turning it off because it's really loud. And that's pretty much all there is to talk about with the crusher. It's simple, a simple machine, but it's very useful. So that's it. The crusher. It's Immersive Engineering's method of increasing your ores. In the next episode, we're going to start talking about well, I was going to talk about the creating biodiesel fuel, so we can get a better fuel source for our crusher and for our future machines. I think that's a good idea, because after this we need to talk about the arc furnace, and there's no way we can run that off of this. So in the next episode, we're going to start talking about biofuel, diesel, to get our higher tier power that we're going to need for these more industrial strength machines. So stay tuned for that. I'm SentinalH, and I'm signing out.